I am a storyteller.
And that is the key to a good book. And I'm going to add this because writing a good book is hard.
Right,
But writing a crappy book is easy.
right,
And there are too many people who don't understand the difference. Is,
right,
is how I would say it.
right.
Um, you know the and I and I, this is Karen rubbing off on me, but write a book in a weekend, or we'll interview you, write your. I mean, those just don't work. In fact,
No.
I have over the last several years, I have gotten books from people that I had followed on social, and some of those kinds of things, and they were crappy.
Right,
And so my trust in them completely went away.
right.
And so anyway, I just want people to understand writing a good book is hard.
Hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people watching us from around the world are saying, okay, we know where Canada is, in British Columbia on the west coast. Right, right. And then we got that big city, Vancouver, beautiful city. We are 500 miles north of Vancouver, or for our friends in Europe, 800 kilometers. That puts us in the center of British Columbia, big province, north, south, east to west. And then Prince George is about 80,000 people, about 120,000 in the region, and it is nature's paradise. We got black bears, grizzly bears, caribou, deer, wolf, you name it, we have it all here. Within 50 miles, we have 100 lakes. It is a beautiful, beautiful country. It is, as I said, nature's paradise. Today, a very, very special guest. His name is Steve Anderson. And Steve Anderson is an author of the international best-selling book, The Bezos Letters, in which he is deconstructing Jeff Bezos' 21 letters to Amazon shareholders through his unique lens of risk. He provides the interviewers with a guide on the key takeaways and principles that Bezos leveraged in turning an online bookstore into a $1 trillion company in just over 2 decades. The two cycles: test, build, accelerate, and scale, and the 14 principles that can help any business to grow like Amazon, not necessarily $1 trillion, but at least in that direction. Jeff, Steve, welcome to the show.
John, thank you so much for having me. I look forward to our conversation.
So, where are you located now, Steve?
I am just outside Nashville, Tennessee.
I love it. Beautiful area. So,
Yes, it is. I wouldn't say it's quite like Prince George, but it's nice in its own way.
I'm sure it is. So, tell us a bit about yourself and your history. Are you from the region there and around the Nashville area, or and how did you? What is your history? You were in, I believe, from a career perspective, into insurance and
Correct.
other businesses. How did you become an author? And then, in particular, Jeff Bezos, and that then became a major bestseller around the world.
All right. Well, I'll start, geographically first. So we've been here in outside Nashville for about 25 years now. Prior to that, in Texas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Prior to that, Washington, D.C., which I consider home, although I moved as a kid several times with my dad's job. But Maryland suburbs of Washington, D.C., I consider home.
Right.
So that's how we got here. And again, love it here. As you mentioned, it's a beautiful area. Uh, and one of the reasons we moved here from Texas is my wife doesn't like the heat.
Yeah.
And so Texas is not the place to be
No.
if you don't like the heat.
No.
So again, as you said, my career has been in the insurance industry. In fact, I got into the industry working for my father-in-law in his independent insurance agency, selling insurance to individuals and to businesses in the Washington, D.C. area. um, Fast forward, left him, moved to Texas to work, and
Again,
got a real interest
insurance in Texas?
in another insurance agency in
Right,
Texas,
right.
and got a real interest in the technology. So this was moved to Texas in '91, and again, think about technology development. Internet was starting to really
Yeah,
be something.
yeah.
Certainly through the '80s and the '90s, it kind of was hitting its stride. And lots of businesses, including insurance agents, needed help figuring out what to do. Websites and social media started up, and client tracking systems and all of those kinds of things. So I began helping them figure all of that out. So left the agency I was with in Dallas in '99, started my own consulting firm. That's when we moved here to the Nashville area.
Consulting
And
in what field?
in technology and insurance agents.
Okay,
And so, again, helping them make decisions about what systems to buy, how their website should look, how to engage with this new online consumer,
right.
and what that means. And so, did that for well, 20, probably 25 years now.
Right.
And then 5 years ago, um, was approached by a couple of people who were they were association executives, so insurance agent associations, and they were trying to help their members with technology. Came to me and said, here's what we're trying to do. We're not making very good progress. You wouldn't be interested in helping, would you? And I think I surprised them and myself by saying, yeah, I think I might be. So fast forward, and 3.5 years ago, formed a new company, took all of my consulting, intellectual property and processes and things I had done, folded them into this new company, which I ran as CEO, co-founder and CEO, and then stepped away from the CEO role just a few months ago. So making another transition for me now. Okay, so that's kind of where I started. Now, your question about the book, right?
Yeah. So
How weird.
what I was going to say is that, with all due respect, you look great, but you're not a young fella anymore
I
either.
am not.
I'm next week. I'm going to be 84, November the
Okay.
1st. 84 years young, I call it.
Yeah.
So I'm also an author. So just want to talk now, talking about the book. Now I'm guessing this. Work with me on this one. Is so you got a phone call. It was about 9:30 in the evening, and who called you? Is Jeff. He said, "Here is Jeff," and you said, "Jeff who?" Jeff Bezos. Oh, Bezos. Bezos is that's not Amazon, right? Yeah, Amazon. Oh, okay. I want you to write a book about me. No?
Nope.
No.
That's not
Okay.
how it happened. And I will tell you, John, to kind of, I would say, to get it out of the way, I have not met Jeff Bezos yet, and probably don't think I will. Who
I will
knows,
I
right?
will I will meet him because
Okay.
I'm going to be insisting on him. He has to get on my podcast.
There
Now,
you go.
yeah, and so now, so the other thing I said, when you started to write the book or thinking about writing a book, now work with me on this one again. You talked to your wife Karen and you said we have to write a book together. No?
Yeah. Well, it ended up that way,
Who is
and
who is who is
I
Karen?
was. She is my wife,
I good.
and we're still married.
And so here's a picture. Have you got the real thing there as well, close to you? The book, the actual. I show a picture of the book, and
I do.
Jeff, Steve will.
Of course, I do.
That's the one. Yeah,
That's the one,
I
and
I
she's right
love it.
here. Um, so okay. So where do you want me to go? I can go to how the idea of the book came. I could go about writing the book with her.
Let
You
me
tell
let
me.
me let me say this is that I'm a late bloomer. I started writing books probably well into my 70s already, and so I've done 5 now. And so all I want to say is to all the friends that are watching us from around the world, writing books is not easy. And so because it is complicated, it involves a lot of things. So I leave it to you from that point forward and saying, okay, so how did it happen? How come Jeff Bezos, and how did the process work for you, and then ended up being an absolute bestseller, and you were on very major media talking about the book and the story?
Yep. So the book came out of my work with technology and insurance agents. um, and it really started with me asking the question, is the biggest risk insurance agents make, and I have since broadened that to businesses, is the biggest risk they have actually not taking enough risk. And so what I mean is technology, we can all agree technology even continues, has been and continues to move and develop and change rapidly. And so in the past, businesses could sit back and go, I don't know, yeah, in the internet years. So you and I both lived through those.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm 70, so a little
70
bit
years,
behind you, but I'm
70 years young, Steve.
young. Yes, it is. I agree.
Yeah.
And so I started looking at companies that once were very successful
Right.
and are no longer here,
Right.
gone, bankrupt, out of business.
Right.
Why? What
Why?
happened?
Exactly.
And I then started looking at companies that have been successful and continue to be successful. That's where I came across Amazon.
Yeah.
And I kind of say now it makes sense. Amazon, and then this was in probably 2017, 18 time frame.
Yeah.
Amazon was continuing to grow big, and all of the things. And I came across in my research the letters to shareholders that Jeff Bezos wrote, just as another kind of data point.
How did you find those?
They're publicly available. So,
Okay.
so, and I don't know about Canada, so this may be a little different. Here in the U.S., a public company, all of their data is filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission and are freely available online.
Here
So you
too.
can go in and, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So you can
Yeah.
go in,
Yeah.
look up pretty much anything, and they have to disclose, right, all
Yeah.
kinds of information.
Correct.
The shareholder letters are common.
Correct.
So a lot of times CEOs write a letter to shareholders really summarizing kind of the financial details and right all the other stuff that can get
The
really
whys and
boring.
the why nots, right? Or the
Yes.
maybes, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Now, typically those shareholder letters are actually pretty boring and
Yeah.
pretty much tout the company. When I started reading the letters Jeff Bezos wrote, and I literally sat down and read all of them at one point, one after the other. And I realized there were threads through those letters. He talked about the company, of course, but he also talked about how he did it. What are the things, the mindsets, even the tools that he used to actually grow Amazon? And that's what really intrigued me. So, I've been a writer my entire career, usually articles and, shorter things in a book, but I actually did a what was going to be a lead gen, right? So here's a PDF, here's some good information, give me your email address and I'll send it. You can, get it free. Typical marketing ploy. I did of the letters that had been published to date, I did a one-page executive summary of those letters. Highlights, key points, key takeaways, how you can apply this in your business. And I was excited about it. I thought these are really interesting things that business owners should be able to take. So now we get to my wife. I talked to her about what I was doing. I showed her my, initial drafts of the PDF, and she looked at me because she's in the book publishing business and has been for many years. She looked at me and said,
It's
"This
the
is a
book.
book, the
It's
book."
the book. Yeah.
And so I had sent it to her and the founder of the publishing company she currently works for. And literally, they both came back almost immediately, meaning a day, maybe less later, and they both said, "This is a book." So I will say I had a sweetheart deal getting published, so that wasn't a problem. What the problem was is I'd never written a book. And you said it correctly. A book is really different than an article of 1,000 or 1,500 words, right?
Yeah.
And the book ended up being 65,000 words.
Yeah.
And where Karen was amazing is helping craft the book so that people wanted to go and read the next chapter.
Right.
That's the only goal, right? You want to keep the reader engaged, keep them wanting to read more. And so that started at least an 18-month journey of writing the book. And
So
uh,
the critical part here, what I'm hearing, Steve, is you had an amazing team
mhm,
by marriage, and
yes,
even through the process, you're still together, and obviously looking back at success. And then it became a question of, as you said, and as I believe, is writing books is not easy. It's difficult. So what if somebody tells me, talk to me about your books, then I say I'm a storyteller. That's who I
yep,
am. That's my
yep.
strong part. I do that in presentations that I do. I do that in my books. I do that in my podcasting. I am a storyteller.
And that is the key to a good book. And I'm going to add this because writing a good book is hard.
Right,
But writing a crappy book is easy.
right,
And there are too many people who don't understand the difference.
right,
Is how I would say it.
right.
Um, you know the and I it, and I, this is Karen rubbing off on me, but write a book in a weekend, or we'll interview you, write your. I mean, those just don't work. In fact,
No,
I have over the last several years, I have gotten books from people that I had followed on social, and some of those kinds of things, and they were crappy.
right,
And so my trust in them completely went away.
right.
And so anyway, I just want people to understand writing a good book is hard.
And then the other part, looking for, you had a unique topic. And the other part about it is I love your cover. I love it because looking back, in a way, and it's so critically important as to what it looks like and what it presents. I like your name being in here with big letters because to a certain extent you are marketing your name and your reputation together with Karen, because I noticed that right away and I said, guess it's his wife. But so writing books, even good books, you must have patience. And so although you had an amazing topic, you had your wife was it could not have been a better combination than what you had. She worked for a publisher, so you were already substantially on the inside, but it didn't
Yes.
guarantee a bestseller. It had to be
No.
well written, it had to be a topic that is of interest, and it had to be marketed in the correct way, and then, even then, it would take time. So you cannot be impatient. So in the 5 books that I've written, is fortunately I'm in a lot of other businesses that I'm doing. I don't rely on my books to provide a living for me, but I know I know in time they will become very, very successful. It started with Against All Odds. And
Uh-huh.
then the fourth one, and I'm also working on the fifth one. The fourth one is this one that is Living Young, Dying Old. And that's a picture of me, actually. I'm the
Yeah.
oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America. And,
Wow.
uh, and
Yep.
then I'm writing another book right now, and you will love this one on communications and
Yep.
new communications versus the old one and what has changed. That's the book. And I have a copy of the somewhere. Maybe Scott will give me a copy of the cover of that book. Is also unique. I don't know if
Yep.
he got it or not. But so what I'm saying is that I'm absolutely convinced that those books in time, and they are all over the last 5, 6 years, will become very, very successful as I move forward with my companies because I have 5 silos. The one business is lumber, the other business is warehousing distribution, the other one is real estate, residential, commercial, and industrial, and the other one is media. And so all those companies are very successful, but will grow by at least double, triple in size over the next 4 or 5 years. And as they
That's great.
do, my stories will become more popular and my books will be as well. And then also
Yep.
I'm doing a platform.
Yep. Well, and that John reminds me, one of my wife's favorite phrases that I hear her say over and over again when she's talking to potential authors is authors don't make money on the book. They make money on what the book makes possible.
Correct.
And you just described that, right? You, you,
Exactly.
you can't live on the royalties of even a really popular book.
No.
And part of the strategy of writing a book is thinking about what you want to accomplish with the book and
Exactly.
having an idea of kind of what's next. The book leads people if they want more. What are you going to provide next to them?
Exactly.
And yeah, and you're right. I can I tell you one story about the actual writing of the book because
Right.
I think it illustrates a comment you made earlier. So I was responsible for putting together what we affectionately call the shitty first draft,
Right.
right? And every first draft is really bad. So just get over yourself if you're trying to write. Don't edit yourself. Just get it down, get it in words. That's what a team you mentioned before is for. That's what the developmental editor, the line editor, the proofreader, the all of those are part of a team that helps you get your book and your idea actually in somebody else's hands. So, shitty first draft. Let me just finish this,
Yeah. Yeah.
if I may.
Yeah. Yeah.
I submitted it, gave it to Karen with a bit of fear and trepidation because I know her standards are really high.
Good. Good. I love it.
Yes, good, ultimately good, but you
Yeah.
know that
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and a couple of days after I sent it to her, I came home and she said, I'd like to talk to you. Now, I don't know, but I think most husbands don't like that statement, right? Oh no, what I do now, right?
Yeah.
So we sat down. She said, thank you for doing the draft. I have looked through it and there's only one problem. I said, okay, what's that? It's boring.
Yeah.
It's boring. And
Yeah.
what I had done, because my mindset was in a certain way, I had written chapters based on years
Yeah.
97, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, what he said then. And she looked at me and she said, people don't care what he said when.
No.
They care what he said and and here's back to what you said, what the stories are around what he said and how
Exactly.
you illustrate.
Exactly.
And that's where she said, can you come up with principles? And I mean, I was pretty crestfallen, I have to admit. And I said, I don't know, but let me think about it. And literally, probably 2, 3, 4 days later, I had an initial set of principles and what we ended up having 14 total. And then, as you mentioned, the different cycles. So the principles are grouped in different places that businesses are in their growth process. So
Yeah.
the first idea doesn't survive and shouldn't survive down to the final manuscript.
And then what happened is that because you had the team, you had a wife that could say to you, Steve, sit down. We got to talk.
Yep.
And you said, oh my God. So, and then from there on in, that led to saying, and she can say that because you would accept it, maybe somewhat reluctant, but
Yeah.
it's, Steve, it's boring. So that then brought you to the point, it has to be a story and it must capture the reader. Is that one of the first things that I did with my book, and again, relying on team and telling this story, is that when I know I was on the right path, with this book actually, the first one that I did, I gave it to somebody that was referred to in the book, and some parts of it are critical and blah, blah, blah about things that happen or things in reality, is saying that I started reading the book, and I usually don't read book. I could not put it down. I stayed up all night to read the book. Now I know I got a book.
Right. And I actually had one of my readers do almost exactly the same comment. Again, we sent it out to a few people to read feedback, and he said, I stayed up way too late reading this book. Bingo. That's what you want.
That's what you want. And then which applies to business as well, patience. That if you believe the product is out, do it well. And that's why you go through the process of saying, what else, what should it look like, what cover should it be in, what colors should I use, what should be the pages, what paper, on and on and on. All those things are important. Should there be pictures in it? If so, where are they? And all those other things are important. And then you put out a product and you believe in it and stand
Right.
behind it. And so so, and that's what it is. So so I'm sure that Jeff Bezos has read the book. I'm virtually
I don't
positive.
know that. I would assume he at least is aware of it. And actually, I know that maybe a little more because I have a business friend in Seattle that, and this was a few years ago, knows Andy Jassy. And so he actually took a copy of my book to his Andy Jassy's house and gave it to his wife. So I know he at least saw the cover. Now he might have probably flipped through the book, never heard anything else from him. Um, and now he's CEO, right? Bezos stepped away. Andy Jassy's now CEO. So who knows?
Yeah.
But yes,
If you contacted him and said, I want you on my podcast?
um, I haven't yet. I am certainly that would be a fun step to do. Yeah.
I actually had one of his vice presidents that was involved with him when they went through the transition of books to the
Oh,
next level, right?
yep. Books,
And
then videos, and right.
yeah, all of
Yep.
those. And I had him on my podcast, and he was there from, I think, 2002 to about 2006 or so. And
Hmm.
again, through that exciting period. And one of the things that kind of stood out with me is initially when Bezos started, they wanted to start this new model, and they had a name for it. And it was something like Cadavra or something like
Yeah.
that.
It was cadabra. That, and he literally was driving to Seattle and trying to set up the company with an attorney, and the attorney said cadaver, and he said, "Nope, we can't use that word." Yeah. Yes.
Interesting, eh? So that stayed with me, and then they said,
Yep.
no, you can't do that because that. So then, and I'm using imagination now on my part.
Mhm.
I don't know that. So then they had to find a different name, and they said, okay, let me see. It works like everybody else, like. If I want to start a hair salon here, if the name starts with an A, then it's the top of the
Mhm.
newspaper or the telephone gets list, and so hence Amazon. But I'm not sure if it happened that way or not. But in any event,
Well, I think that was part of it. Is again early internet days. Websites were listed alphabetically.
yeah,
The other part of it, and this kind of goes back to his vision, is the Amazon is the biggest river in the world.
yeah,
And from the very beginning, Bezos started with books, but never was going to stop with books.
right,
And so he had an early vision of what now we refer to as the everything store, that there people could go to Amazon and buy anything and look at it today. So he started with books because it was the easiest place to start, but he never was going to stop at books.
yeah. So, and that's the interesting part about it is because when it started with books, that already was, and I've things stick in my mind about him because obviously I admire him for the things that he did and how he went about it. Is that initially when he talked about it in a very small way, starting with books, he say that doesn't make sense. There's no business in starting with books. Well, obviously you proved them wrong.
Yes.
So it comes down to your 14 points.
Mhm.
What makes somebody unique in terms of having the vision, get beyond, because it's a lonely, lonely road to have a vision and then encounter, which you will for sure, is the amazing amount of naysayers that will never work, and then still stay the course, and through the difficult times hanging on by your fingernails, and then surviving, and then still staying the course.
Yep.
What does it take to do that?
So one of my principles that addresses that particular mindset, and it is unique in Bezos, is he was a long-term thinker. And so the principle, and it's in the build cycle, so test and build. It's apply long. The principle itself is apply long-term thinking. And again, he did that. He had a vision for what Amazon could become, and really through the 2000s, a little bit late 99, but remember the internet bubble in the early 2000s. And I mean, many of the financial analysts didn't see that Amazon could survive. Their article, Amazon.bomb, all those kinds of naysayers. Um, he still had that vision and he still applied that vision. And let me give you another example of that. So Bezos graduated high school in Miami, Florida. He was valedictorian of his class in Miami. Um, Kind of an indicator of his intelligence level. He was really smart. He is really smart. Um, his valedictorian speech centered around space. And his idea at that time was that people and manufacturing would move to space so that the planet could be thought of as a national park or a world park, that people would come to vacation here on Earth while work or things in space. Early on, he started Blue Origin in the early 2000s, and kind of fast forward now, that vision is still in play with all the stuff that he's doing at Blue Origin, and et cetera. So another indicator of the power of a vision and the power of being willing to ignore the naysayers, as you said, because you are so convinced your vision can become reality. And I think any business can learn lessons from that.
But it brings a certain amount of character, ability, situation of, but I always say, entrepreneurship is highly overrated in a lot of cases. I'm an
Mhm.
entrepreneur. It is very demanding. And a lot of people have the illusion that if you're an entrepreneur and appear to be doing well, you spend most of your time planning holidays and bringing money to the bank. I said, no, that's not what it is. You go from crisis to crisis, from dealing with naysayers, convincing lenders and others that your dreams and your ideas are the right one as you go forward. But it's not an easy road. And for a lot of people, unfortunately, they give up and say it either cannot be done or disillusioned or don't even get to that point and always dream about what could have been.
Mhm.
And so, how do you step outside of that? Takes a number of skill sets, but also attitude, physical health, and the ability to be there, stay sharp, ability to be an effective communicator, because communications, that's why I wrote a book about it that is coming out
Yep.
in June, is so critically important. Because if you are not a good communicator, meaning being articulate on expressing your thoughts and conveying that in terms of becoming accepted by those that you rely on to become part of your team, may that be the financial community or whatever it is, to get
Yep.
to the next step, is critically important.
I agree. Yep.
And
Sure is.
discipline. And so for me, a lot of times it is attitude, avoid the negative, passion, whatever I do, I give it 125%, and work ethic, and what will follow is success. And even work ethic for me, even till today at nearly 84, that I still get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always think I'm late. I always make my bed, and every day to me is a good day. And so, but I'm still pushing very hard, because the one thing that academically I was not a success story, Steve. I failed grade 3 and I failed grade 7 3 times. And I was born in Holland. And so they said to my parents, what are we going to do with John? Maybe send him to the mentally challenged school. And they said, no,
Mm.
we're not going to do that. We're going to teach him a trade, and then he can work with his hands, right? So at 13, they said my grandfather was a master carpenter. My dad worked in the lumber industry, and they said, let's make him a furniture maker. So they sent me to a furniture factory at 13, and I loved it. And now, friends that I had that went on to college and university can be very hard on each other. And I became a laborer. Today I'm proud of
Right.
that. But looking back, it was not looked at as success. And so that's where I want. And then the other part that happened to me, that I was born in 1940 in northeastern Holland during the beginning of the Second World War, and we saw far too much that we should not have seen. And we were
Mhm.
liberated by the Canadian Army April the 12th, 1945. And it made such an impression on me that I knew from that point forward I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And I tried to go when I was 17. I was drafted then into the Dutch Air Force, not anymore now, but then it was. And then I came here. I knew I was just as smart as the other ones, but not better than, but as smart. And so I wanted to go to Canada. I started with very little, so I had a suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and so I wanted to build a lumber mill. But the trees are in British Columbia, so I flew into Montreal, took the train across Canada, 4 days, 5 nights. Can you believe it? It's a long, long way. So I stopped in Vancouver, arrived there, and I couldn't speak English, didn't know soul, didn't have a job. And fortunately, there was a German fellow, and I told him what I wanted to do. I wanted to build a lumber mill. And he said, Prince George, 500 miles away, 800 kilometers. And so I'm still in Prince George today. So I came off the bus here 60 years ago with my suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and I had exactly $25.47.
Yep.
But I had a dream, and I did get my lumber mill and many other companies, and so it was successful. The quality that I had is that although I was not good in school, and one of the reasons for it, without over belaboring it too much, but by pure coincidence, I picked up a book, and the book's title was here. After I was already here for 32 years in Prince George, in 1997, I was successful, and everybody said, "Oh, you're so successful." I didn't feel that way.
Mm.
I felt I was different. Didn't know why until I found a book in a bookstore here. This is the actual book, Driven to Distraction, written by Dr. Hollywell, medical doctor. And I started opening the book. It's about ADHD. And I said, "Oh my God, that's me." And I wrote in the book, January 1997, in Dutch. Now I finally know who I am. And so, and there was a lot of stigma attached. So there I'm building companies and going to the bank and making proposals, and the companies is growing. And what am I going to say? Like I make a proposal, that's all good. Oh, by the way, I have a mental disorder called ADHD. Not now, but then it was looked at like questionable.
Right.
So that kind of changed my life, but I had a unique ability that made me different from a lot of other people. Even in the schooling, I was very good at writing. I'm also dyslexia was a problem, so ADHD and dyslexia. But I was a good writer, and I was good at numbers. And I believe I had a gift in terms of looking forward and seeing a vision, and then staying the course on that direction. And I did that when I started with my $25.47 here in Prince George. It was in a very short order. I became very involved in managing sawmills here, and then became an owner of a mill after I was here for 10 years. And then from there on in, it grew into a fairly sizable company with, as I said earlier, with 4 major silos, and we are still growing today. Even at 84, I look forward and wanting to double, triple the size of our companies, including looking forward to starting a platform. So the uniqueness of what makes me different from others, that determination to have the vision and staying the course. So your specialty, looking at those areas in particular, what makes people unique like the Jeff Bezos and others that became very, very successful? What can people learn from them, either the ones that are in business now or aspiring to be in business, and saying, how do we go forward from here and grow our company, our companies?
So I'm going to point to another principle that I think is really important, frankly, for businesses to grow. And it's, again, related to risk taking. The principle is encourage successful failure. And I want to be careful because I feel like people misinterpret that or hear it a different way. This is strategic risk. And I think that's, again, the perspective I brought in writing this book, looking at Bezos and Amazon. In fact, in the book, I call him the master of risk because of how he uses risk strategically to grow and encourage successful failure. Typically, you don't hear those two words together, successful and failure. And at Amazon, one of their key advantages is experimentation. They experiment with everything. And they're not afraid of actually closing down an experiment. And what Bezos said is if you need to experiment, if you're going to experiment, you're going to fail. So you need to be comfortable with failure. The question is, what are you going to learn and apply the next time? And the problem is too many businesses, certainly as they grow, tend to start protecting what got them there, not looking at what do we have to do next. And so experimentation leads to invention, which allows innovation. And I think today's business world focus on being innovative is missing the first two steps, experimentation and invention. So that really is the core and of what I think I bring that's different in this book is that idea, again, coming from the insurance industry, it's completely opposite of what the insurance industry thinks, which is reduce risk, mitigate risk, transfer risk. But if you're not willing to take risks, and that's what an entrepreneur does a lot, and whether they do it well or not is a question. And when I say encourage successful failure, it really is talking to your employees. Do you have an environment in your business that encourages them to experiment, understanding that they're going to fail? And at the same time, this is not who cares, let's just do anything. This is strategic, intentional, thoughtful. And they have a number of tools that help them manage that process that Bezos has developed over the time he was there building it.
So, what I found from my experience in all the companies that I have, all 10 of them, I'm the sole shareholder. I have no other shareholders. What I
Mhm.
found a lot is with other companies is that they are public companies and there is a tendency of hiring senior management and then hold them accountable on a quarterly basis as to profitability objectives. And then if that is not reached, then the likelihood is they will not survive in the senior roles and there will be changes. So, what
Yeah.
that does, in fact, is that eliminates experimenting with risk unless you bring the board on board, which is likely difficult, again, depending as to who directs the board and what direction are we going. Hence, coming back to your book and Jeff Bezos in regards to his letters to his
Yeah.
shareholders as to explaining his vision, his reasons why or why not, and where his view was in the longer term. It also explains, at least in my mind, Stephen Jobs
Mhm.
and Apple when he still was entrepreneurial moving forward in the company, even at risk, close to success, where they fired him.
Mhm.
And then he stayed the course, regrew his future again on his amazing ability, vision never give up, forward, and created a company that then was acquired by Apple, and he ended up again managing Apple and brought it to likely his direction still today is on the foundation of where Apple is today, virtually $1 trillion company. But an example of what I'm saying, entrepreneurship and that unique quality of being different and seeing the vision and being that you must be able to take risk to find success. That doesn't come easy, but it creates, especially where there is other shareholders in public ownership, the ability to communicate your message so that it does not become a
Right.
problem. So it's a delicate
Yep.
process. That's basically what I'm
It
saying.
is. It is. It's definitely. And one of the comments I make in the book on this topic is I don't believe employees are afraid of failure, but they are afraid of the consequences of failure. And I think that's what you just described.
That's right.
And that's the idea of building a culture in your company. Again, it's not stupid failure, it's intentional. In fact, one of the leadership principles at Amazon is leaders are right a lot, meaning they're they do make good decisions. They do make intentional progress. Um, and again, all of these factors combine together to Amazon continuing to be um, a inventive and innovative company.
So if you look now at, be speaking to people around the world that are watching us, and especially those that are involved in companies or are entrepreneurial, what is the key for people as they are in smaller businesses or businesses that they have a vision potentially may grow? What would your comments be to them? It's saying things are tough, they're demanding, they are, how do we go forward and how do we try to avoid disasters, but at the same time, you must take risk to grow.
Yep. So one thought comes to mind, and especially for smaller and maybe medium-sized companies who might be thinking, "Well, I'm never going to be an Amazon, or I don't even want to be an Amazon," and I think that's okay. And I want to remind you that Jeff Bezos started like every other business owner starting something new in his garage on his hands and knees, taking books people had ordered online when they never knew they could order books online, putting them in packages, driving them to the post office, and mailing them to those customers.
That's how it started.
He's That's how it started. And Steve Jobs, as you mentioned, similar. I mean, yes, they became big, and not everybody's going to do that. There's certainly some advantages both of those companies had in the time that they were building. That doesn't mean you can't build what you want to build by looking at what they did and taking away what you think makes sense for you in your situation and what you are trying to accomplish.
The other thing that I usually say that may happen in business as you start the business, the business takes on a life of its own in terms of even if you're the sole owner, like in my case, and it tells you where we should go. And then if you are a visionary, then you have to weigh those delicate options. Do I want to get bigger? Do not. But the business will take on a life of its own and go into directions, especially if the entrepreneur, which is a lot of cases the case, already taking the risk and bringing it to a certain level that it is going to that next step, because right sizing of a company critically important for the longevity of the company is always delicate and difficult, and you have to acquire the confidence, the ability to know there is an element of risk involved, and prepare to do that in order for the company to be successful.
Agreed. Yep.
So that's the biggest challenge.
Yes, it is. And that's, what do I want to say? That's the entrepreneurial challenge is how to navigate that appropriately.
Yeah. And the uniqueness of entrepreneurship is unique in a way,
Mhm.
and there is a vision. It's very exciting, not dull in any way, I'm sure, even not today for people like Jeff Bezos, but it can be and it will be very, very rewarding. I say to all the people around the world, start with buying the book from Steve Anderson, with very, very popular. But I'm going to do, Steve, I'm going to send you my books that I've done,
Great.
all four of them, and sign them for you and send them to you. And then at the same time, have you got a website that people can contact you on?
I do.
Okay, can you share
Yeah.
with us?
So I can. The book website is thebezosletters.com. And one of the things I did in the book is at the end of every chapter, I have just 2, 3 questions, sometimes 4, on how to apply that principle and how to think about it. So I was really focused on helping people not just read, but think about how that might impact or help them in their business. So I encourage you to do that. And the book is available on Amazon. It's actually been translated into 20 languages. So for international, there may be one of the editions in your home language.
I love it, Steve. And for all those people watching us, and Steve and myself in our dialect about entrepreneurship, Jeff Bezos in particular, and Amazon, subscribe to our websites, like us, share us with others. Comment on us if you like what we are doing, and at least send it as a signal. Order the book because you will find it very, very amazing. And the same as myself, johnabrink.com, and all the things that we are doing. And again, Steve, it was a privilege and a pleasure to meet you and to have this podcast with you.
But John, I enjoyed our conversation a lot. So thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Take care, Steve. Say hi to Karen.
I will. I certainly will.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, take care.